Now...
The sun beat down relentlessly on the village and the dusty hairpin road that led up to it. A few goats sought the shade of the gnarled olive trees. It was siesta time. No one stirred. Up the hill, at an incredibly slow pace, came a donkey cart, its driver apparently asleep under his wide-brimmed hat. At the crest of the hill, the cart stopped. The driver turned and looked over his shoulder. Lying on the sacks in the open cart was a figure in soldier's uniform. The driver made a gesture with his thumb, indicating a small, whitewashed house. The soldier stirred, jumped to the ground, and approached the house. A dog lying near the door looked up and scratched itself sleepily. Behind the slatted windows, two men watched.
This is one of them?
What do you think, Arcos?
It's the right size, exactly the right size. In fact, Martin, if he was dressed in a London city suit with a bowler and umbrella, that could be John Steed. Let him in.
The Avengers.
John Steed and Emma Peel, The Avengers.
Episode 1 of this story, in which John Steed and Emma Peel journey to Spain to find a great deal of heat, a lot of flies, a mysterious intrigue, and too many Olays. In London, the weather was miserable. Drizzle fell from the grey, clouded sky. A keen wind whipped round the street corners. There was the inevitable traffic jam to aggravate Mrs. Peel's slight depression as she made her way towards John Steed's apartment. By the time she got to the Mews, she was irritable and scowling. Steed's front door was open. She knocked and entered.
Anyone at home? Steed? Steed!
Buenos dias, senorita. Pleased to accept.
John Steed entered the room from the kitchen, clicking a pair of castanets. He stopped in front of Mrs. Peel with a sharp rap of his heels and presented her with a rose.
A rose. Thank you, Steed. Am I supposed to put it between my teeth and join in, or what?
Not or what, Mrs. Peel, please. Care for a glass of rare Spanish sherry?
Oh, well, it might keep out the cold.
Ole.
Steed produced a decanter and two glasses as though by magic and poured the sherry expertly and gently.
Well, come on, let's have it.
Patience, patience. Sherry must flow into the glass.
I didn't mean the drink. I can wait for that. What I can't wait to know is why all this Spanish kick.
Well, just getting in a little practice, that's all. Here, salute.
Good old-fashioned English bottoms up.
Not where we're going.
And where are we going?
Tarragon, near Saragossa in sunny Spain. Ole.
You're serious, Steed?
Never more, sir. Mother phoned up. It's all arranged. We leave this afternoon.
Oh, Steed, how splendid. Sunshine, vino, lazing by the sea.
There's no sea near Tarragon, but there should be plenty of vino. There's also a peace conference going on. Mother wants us to keep an eye on a couple of dubious delegates. I shouldn't imagine it'll be too difficult. I said, si. Do you agree?
Si. Salute.
I think it is all ready. Good. Then we had better go now. Down through the barrier. Come, follow me.
At the bull ring at Tarragon, two men pushed their way through the crowds to a door which led down a flight of stone steps under the changing rooms. It was dim and cool in the inner room. Only the faint sound of the bullfight above them could be heard. Strapped to a chair in the middle of the room was a man in soldier's uniform. He had a mask on his face. Standing over him, working on the mask, was a heavily built doctor in surgeon's robes. The man called Arcos approached.
You are ready for us, Doctor?
I think this is the best I can do, Arcos.
Then remove the mask. Let us see.
The doctor skillfully inserted a scalpel into a crack in the plaster cast and broke the mask in 2 pieces. The soldier groaned and gasped for air. Puzzled and sweating, he gazed around him.
Please, what you do to me? What you do?
Markin approached over the stone floor, took a hand mirror from the clinical-looking bench, and held it in front of the soldier.
Look how pretty you are, my friend.
But that is not my face. That is not me. It's not my face.
But it did look remarkably like John Steed's face.
What do you think, Arcos?
The nose is wrong. The hairline, too. The ears.
It's the best I can do. Yeah, compare with the photograph.
Arcos picked up some full-plate photographs of John Steed and then threw them down impatiently.
We cannot work from photographs. It is impossible. Impossible.
What can we do?
We need Steed, the real man. We need Steed himself. It will not work without him. We must capture Steed.
And what about him?
Markin indicated the soldier strapped to the chair. Arcos drew a gun from beneath his coat.
Dispensable.
No.
The Miranda Hotel at Tarragon is not lavish. Visually, it's a piece of old Spain. In the taxi upon arrival, Mrs. Peel was enchanted.
Oh, Steve, this is delightful. The real thing.
Yes, I hope the plumbing's for real, too.
They climbed out of the taxi and walked into the hotel, unaware that under the trees across the road they were being watched by Arcos and Markin.
That is Steed.
And the woman?
I do not know. His woman, I suppose. She will not bother us. If she does, then she too will have to be taken care of. Come, let us make the phone call.
Upstairs, Mrs. Peel was shown into a simple, charming room with shuttered windows. She tipped the elderly porter and moved to the shutters, drawing them aside and gazing down into the street. She noticed 2 men moving away towards a red saloon. Steed entered the room.
Ole, como le va?
You've been at the phrase book again.
That's right. I've finally mastered the Spanish for my grandfather's ear trumpet has been struck by lightning. It's terribly useful.
I think I'm going to like it here. What's your room like?
Oh, very different.
Oh?
Yes, indeed. My dressing table's at least 6 inches near the window.
Who'd have thought it, Steed? A holiday at last.
Well, it's not a holiday, actually. I thought I'd explain.
Well, almost a holiday.
We're official observers at the peace conference. Very serious business.
Well, I hope the peace conference lives up to its name. Very thoughtful of them to hold it in Spain.
Very thoughtful of the Spaniards to instigate it. Fancy an anisette?
Never tried it.
Highly recommended. A jigger of anisette, piece of ice, splash of cool water. Yeah, let's go down and find the bar.
Steed stepped back to allow Mrs. Peel to precede him into the corridor. As she did so, a voice said,
Will you marry me?
A startlingly good-looking man, blond and athletic, stood framed in the doorway.
Will you be my wife? Good day to you, sir. Please, madam, will you marry me?
Marry you?
Please, I implore you to be my wife. Only for 5 minutes or so.
Oh, there he
Say
is.
nothing. Leave everything to me.
Oh, Baron. Oh, gee, Baron, Kurt, baby, say it isn't true. You promised you'd choose between me and that redhead. Oh.
Why, Helga, imagine seeing you. May I present my wife? My wife...
Emma.
My wife, Emma.
Your wife? Gee, you didn't say anything about having a wife. You never said anything about being married. Oh, Kurt, baby. Oh, how mortifying. Another one out of circulation. Goodbye forever.
Goodbye, Helga. You have earned my undying gratitude. May I present myself to Baron Funkert, always at your service?
I'm John Steed. This is Emma Peel.
How do you do?
You must forgive my intrusion, but as you have seen...
You have your problems.
My own fault. A foolish mistake. I tried to be friendly.
And the thing grew on you?
We understand each other, Mr. Steed. Thank you again, Miss Peel.
Mrs. Peel. It wouldn't have worked out. Bigamy.
I kiss your hand. It was a pleasure being married to you. Adios.
Baron von Kurt clicked his heels smartly, turned and strolled down the corridor. Mrs. Peel turned with a shrug of her elegant shoulders and raised an eyebrow at Steed.
Well, that's the trouble with these holiday romances. They never last.
A short while after that, while sipping anisette on the terrace, Steed was called to the telephone.
John Steed?
Senor Steed. Welcome to Spain. Captain Jose of the Spanish Secret Service. We have yet to meet thee.
Well, I'm delighted to talk to you, Captain. I hope we meet soon.
There are many things to discuss, you understand. You could call upon me, perhaps immediately, por favor?
Well, I think I can manage it. Can you give me the address?
14 Cala da Luna. It is not far from your hotel.
14 Calle de Luna. Right, I'll take a taxi and be with you in half an hour.
Muchas gracias, senor. Adios.
Adios.
So Steed ordered a taxi. When it came, Arcos was at the wheel.
14 Calle de Luna, por favor.
Si, senor.
A short while later, while rounding a corner of the narrow streets, Arcos stopped the taxi. The door of the taxi opened. Markin jumped in.
Oh, I beg your pardon. This taxi...
Buenos noches, senor. Sleep well. Drive on, Arcos.
Now, John Steed, in Spain, with Mrs. Peel, as official observers at a peace conference, had a telephone call from Captain Jose of the Spanish Secret Service. Steed agreed to call upon the captain and ordered a taxi. It came on time, but the man behind the wheel was not an ordinary taxi driver. His name was Arcos.
14 Calle de Luna, por favor.
Si, senor.
A short while later, while rounding a corner of the narrow streets, Arcos stopped the taxi. The door of the taxi opened. Suddenly, Markin jumped in.
Oh, I beg your pardon, but this taxi...
Buenos noches, senor. Sleep well. Drive on, Arcos.
Episode 2 of this story, in which Emma Peel realizes that John Steed has been abducted. Steed understands that he is about to be duplicated, and both find their trip to Spain has too many olays. When Mother suggested to John Steed and Emma Peel that they should go to Spain as observers at the peace conference, they both said si, rather hurriedly. The English weather was foul and cold. The Spanish climate was fine and hot. They both thought the whole thing a good excuse for getting a suntan and sampling the local vino, and were well pleased with the position of their hotel near the village of Tarragon. The Miranda Hotel was rambling, charming, and well appointed. Mrs. Peel was prepared to enjoy herself. Certainly the visit had started off well, for Mrs. Peel had only been in the place a few minutes when a most handsome gentleman had pleaded with her to marry him. The man's name was Baron von Kurt, and he'd passed her off as his wife to avoid embarrassment with an American floozy who was pursuing him. Mrs. Peel was amused and slightly flattered. Later, after a siesta, she went in search of John Steed on the terrace.
Ah, hello there.
Oh, hello, Baron von Kurt.
It is not my lucky day, is it?
Isn't it?
I mean, it is not me you are looking for.
Oh, well, actually, no. No, it isn't. I must be truthful.
Of course. Your friend Steed.
Yes, that's right. He went out some hours ago. Doesn't seem to have come back yet.
Well, there's a clear view of the hotel foyer from that table over there. As long as you're waiting, why not sit down and join me?
Well...
No, please. Besides the fact that I owe you a drink, I would be enchanted. Please say Sisi.
Very well. Thank you.
Ole, it is my lucky day. Waiter.
Senor?
Sangria, por favor. Muy frío.
Si, senor.
Oh, very nice. Having a man order for me without asking questions.
They make good sangria here. Later, perhaps we drink the wine of the district. Can you drink in the Spanish style?
But do you mean mix my drinks? Drink early in the morning with breakfast? Or drink from a wineskin held above my head?
The wineskin.
I've never tried.
Then I shall teach you. I think I could teach you many things, if you will allow me. You know, I rather hope Mr. Steed is delayed for some time. Say, a week or two? That would be delightful for me.
John Steed was delayed, all right. At that moment, he was lying unconscious on the bed, his hands tightly tied together with a thick cord, his face covered with a mass of sticky plaster in an egg-like steel container. Arcos and Markin stared down at him.
Should be good enough. Take it off.
Right.
The egg-shaped mask made a squelching noise as it left Steed's face. Both men peered into the mold.
Nearly dry.
Excellent. Another splendid impression. Dish it there on the table and let us go through his pockets.
The jacket, it is here, and it contains the wallet. Security pass with Steed's name and photograph.
Yes, that is exactly right. We have plenty of copies of those. In the drawer there are forged passes. All we need now is to photograph him. Wake him up.
Why do we not use his pass?
It has to be signed, and anyone entering the peace conference has to sign the book. The signatures must tally. The agent who uses the pass must be able to make the same signature. This is the better way. Wake him up.
Come on. Wake up, come on.
Just a few minutes more.
Wake up!
Steed woke up, opened his eyes, and Arcos, who had focused an instant camera upon him, took a quick flash shot.
Bonjour, gentlemen.
We are not French.
Nor are you gentlemen.
Arcos was busy with the photograph and the forged pass. Markin tested the face mold with his finger.
I have a shrewd suspicion that there is dirty work afoot.
Be quiet.
It may sound a foolish question, but may I ask what?
We are going to infiltrate the peace conference.
With a forged pass?
And a forged face.
It is dry now, Markin. Firmly set. Look, Mr. Steed. Recognize him?
Steed stared into the mold and realized what it was immediately.
Yes, your face, Mr. Steed. With your face and this pass, it will be child's play to get past the security guards.
I see. Won't whoever wears it look a little plastered?
Not plaster, Steed. Flesh. Living flesh. Oh, I won't bore you with the scientific jargon dealing with plastoids, pigments, molecular rearrangement. Suffice to say that if a man fits this mold over his face and injects himself with this...
Arcos held up a box that contained several hypodermics and several bottles of milky white fluid.
Within minutes, his face will assume the shape, texture, and every detail of the molded face.
Instant plastic surgery.
Exactly. I could not have expressed it more succinctly myself. Instant plastic surgery.
It works?
You'll have to take my word for it, but it does. For a matter of several hours before the likeness fades. Time enough.
Here are the list of names of those agents whose build resembles Steed's. There are 5 of them in Spain at the moment.
Oh, let me see. Yes, we will use Nadine. Pack up a kit. I will get Bruno to deliver it. Yes, Steed, in an hour or two, Nadine will receive this kit. He will use it. And he will become you, Steed.
Clever, don't you think?
Fiendishly.
Thank you. Gracias, senor.
Gracias.
Oh, think nothing of it. I take it that the fake me will destroy the conference.
Of course. Now I have other things to attend to. I shall be back later. Adios, Senor Steed. Keep a careful eye on him, Markin.
With that, Arcos moved along the short tunnel that led up to the bull ring. He unlocked the door and left them.
What happens now?
To you?
Yes, forgive me, but I'm selfish that way.
You will be kept here until the job is done. Until there is no chance of things going wrong.
And then?
Oh, and then we shall kill you, of course.
Out in the deserted bull ring, Arcos crossed over to one of the stands. Dr. Verno and a man called Smirnov came to meet him.
Keep a very careful watch upon the door, senors. Markin is with the prisoner. He must not be allowed to escape.
Do not worry. He will not get away. I have this.
The doctor pulled an ugly-looking pistol from under his cape.
And I this.
Smirnov drew out a matador's sword.
I am used to the quick kill. Ole.
Down in the room beneath the bullring, John Steed had found a sharp edge in the metal frame of the bed upon which he was sitting. With hands tied behind his back, he was able to rub the cords almost through. Markin was pouring himself a drink.
You want the vino, see?
Thank you, no. I'm rather particular about with whom I drink. Never drink with the dregs, you know. Not old school tie at all.
You laugh at me, huh? Then you will have the vino like this.
Markin threw the contents of his glass into Steed's face.
Very inferior, Ribeiro. The wines from the northwest never travel. You're right to throw it away. By the by, where are we, anyway?
What is that?
Where are we? Where is this place?
Oh, we are under the... It is of no interest to you.
Oh, but you're wrong. You see, if I don't know where I am, then I won't know how to find my way back.
Steed, who'd been straining at the cords, finally parted them and whirled to his feet. Markin's hand went to his gun. Steed grabbed the empty wine bottle and tossed the remains of the wine into Markin's face.
Undrinkable, isn't it?
Steed landed a terrific punch. Markin went sailing through the air and crashed into the stone wall, slithering down it and ending up out cold. Olé, Steed. On the terrace of the Hotel Miranda, Baron von Kut and Emma Peel had progressed from the sangria to the wine of the valley. With a large wineskin, the Baron was demonstrating the delicate art of drinking the wine as it poured from the opening of the skin. Mrs. Peel was becoming quite good at it.
That's it. You're getting it. Olé. Hey, so am I.
Oh, that's enough. I realize now that one can't get better the more one drinks. Oh, dear, what a mess.
I wish you'd let me show you the town. My car's outside. I'll drive you anywhere. To
the ends of the earth? No, thanks. I'd better stay here.
It was at that point that a Spanish captain approached.
Excuse me, but you are the Mrs. Appeal? I wish to see Mr. Steed. I am Capitan Jose. My papers.
Captain Jose? But where is Steed? Didn't he keep the appointment?
The appointment? Non comprendo.
But you rang him much earlier. You made an appointment. He went off in a taxi to visit you.
I no make the appointment, senorita. I no make the phone call. I do not, I no meet this Mr. John Steed. I have never meet him. Where is he?
Well, that's a darn good question. Where is he?
Now?
Excuse me, but you are Mrs. Appeal? I wish to see Mr. John Steed. I am Capitan Jose, in my papers.
Captain Jose? But where is Steed? Didn't he keep the appointment?
The appointment? Non comprendo.
But you rang earlier, much earlier. You made an appointment and he went off in a taxi to visit you.
I not make an appointment. I not make the phone call. Is that what he said? That I called him?
I must have made a mistake.
Yes. I think you have, Mrs. Peel. So, Senor Steed, he's not here.
Not at the moment, no.
Then I shall call back later. Buenos dias.
Captain Jose of the Spanish Secret Service marched off the terrace of the Hotel Miranda, Tarragon, near Zaragoza, Spain. And Mrs. Peel watched him go, with a worried frown, asking herself the inevitable question.
Where the devil are you?
Episode 3 of this story, in which Emma Peel continues to search for John Steed, and Steed complicates matters for the enemy in a case that still has too many olés. John Steed was in big trouble. He'd come to Spain as a mere observer at a peace conference to be held near Zaragoza, but had discovered a plot to sabotage the whole assembly by smuggling in an enemy agent, disguised as himself. The agent chosen was a man called Nadine. Nadine would gain admittance to the conference by means of a forged pass and a remodeled face. The pass was easy. It was merely a copy of Steed's own pass. The face was a little more difficult. It became a replica of Steed's when a process of injections reformed it under a mould taken from Steed's face while he was unconscious. Steed was held prisoner pending the successful outcome of this intrigue. The man guarding him was Markin. Steed had been tied with his hands behind his back, but had managed to cut through the cords. When free, he'd hurled the contents of a bottle of wine at Markin. Steed landed a terrific punch. Markin sailed through the air, crashed into the wall of the room, and slid to the floor. Steed made off down the passage that led up to the bull ring.
Door unlocked. That's a bit of luck.
Steed emerged, blinking at the sunlight. Up in the stands, Dr. Verno was instantly on the alert. His companion Smirnoff took a firmer grip of his matador's sword. Verno stopped him.
No. Leave him to me. He is a splendid target. So.
John Steed ducked as bullets crashed into the barrier nearby. Smirnoff, under the cover of the fire, made a dash for Steed.
Well, only one thing to beat, and that's a hasty retreat.
Steed dodged back inside and slammed the door, locking it just as Smirnoff tried to enter.
Problem. Can't get out. I'll have to stop it all happening.
Back in the main room, Steed stepped over the body of the still unconscious Markin and stared down at the table where all the face-transforming equipment lay. There were several moulds of his own face and a batch of false passes.
One agent is supposed to impersonate me. A man called Bruno is going to deliver the equipment to him. Now, his name is Nadine. Yes, that's it. Here's the list of the other 4 agents who'll be called upon to act if Nadine fails. Korova, Rolla, Mintoff, and Giorgio. Now, what if all of them received a face-transforming kit and false passes? That would nail the lie, all right. Now, let me see.
Steed worked swiftly, taking extra photographs, patching them on the passes, fitting syringes and the bottles of necessary fluid into boxes, labeling them with the names of the other 4 agents. He'd just finished and placed the boxes with the one marked Nadine in the delivery suitcase when Arcos forced his way in. Steed wheeled round and pretended to be trying the grill of the small window above the bed.
All right, Mr. Steed. Freeze.
In this heat? You've got to be joking.
Dr. Verno, attend to him.
Verno approached Steed, taking out a pair of handcuffs. Arcos covered them with a gun while Steed was handcuffed to the bed rail. Arcos crossed the unconscious Markin and slapped him into life.
Markin! Markin, you fool! Markin!
He jumped me. Oh, the suitcase. Has he tampered with it?
Arcos picked up the case.
No, the stuff is still in here. Bruno?
A young, good-looking Spaniard stepped out of the shadows.
That is for me to deliver, si, Senor Arcos?
Right away. Lose no time.
Si, Senor. At once, Senor. At once.
Bruno left the room. Steed watched him go with a sense of relief.
Olé!
A short way away, a large saloon car was stirring the dust from the open road. Behind the wheel was Baron von Kurt. Alongside him, Emma Peel.
It is extremely nice of you to allow me to drive you, Emma.
Selfish, I'm afraid. There is a motive behind this.
May I ask what?
I'd rather you didn't. I want to go up to the old mountain road.
Oh, very well.
You do know it?
Of course, I know this district very well indeed. But you are so thoughtful. I thought we might have fun. You are so serious.
Sorry. I've got a lot on my mind. I'm so sorry.
There's no need to be. Sorry. When you're worried, there's a delightful pucker between your eyebrows that I find most charming.
I think this is the place. Yes. Would you mind stopping here, ahead by that wall? Thank you.
The Baron looked at Mrs. Peel with some surprise, but he obeyed. He parked the car by the wall, under the shade of a tree.
Shan't be long.
Mrs. Peel left the road and clambered down the bank, heading for a clearing between the olive trees. In the clearing was a caravan. By the caravan, stirring something in a large pot, was, of all people, Mother.
Ah, Mrs. Peel. Nice of you to drop in.
Mother, Steed's missing.
How does this smell to you? Trifle too much garlic, do you think? Missing for how long?
Several hours.
Yes, I think that is a trifle too much. Oh, well, I shouldn't worry, Mrs. Peel. Lots of diversions in this country, you know. Bullfights, dancing, just an ordinary siesta, perhaps.
But he went to see Captain Jose.
Ah, that's it then. Probably splitting a bottle of red wine right now. They do a very fine light claret type in this area, and I really enjoy it.
Mother, I've just seen Jose. He knows nothing about Steed's visit.
Oh, dear. Not at the hotel, either. Or with Jose. Then the question is, where is he? Have you kept all this to yourself?
Yes, I didn't tell Jose.
Good girl. No sense in our panicking either. Go back to your hotel.
And if anything happens?
I'll let you know immediately. Now, run along there. That's a good girl. Let me enjoy my holiday. Oh, dear, I do hate roughing it.
And with that, Mother poured half a bottle of dry sherry into the pot, and Mrs. Peel returned to the Baron and his car.
Where to now?
Back to the hotel. And thank you for not asking questions.
Back at the very same hotel, the Miranda, the agent Nadine received the parcel from the delivery boy, Bruno.
Ah, merci. So, I'm to be Jean Steed, am I? I just followed the instructions, and I come to look exactly like Steed. Very well. Can I offer you a drink, Bruno?
Thank you, no, Senor Nadine. I have 4 more deliveries to make. Please to excuse me.
And so Bruno left to deliver the other parcels in other parts of the town, where Perova accepted his.
Oh, gracias, Bruno. I become the Steed, eh?
Rolla.
Ah, merci, Bruno.
Minto.
Thank you, Bruno.
Giorgio.
Mille grazie. Miss Steed. Good.
All accepted their parcels and prepared to turn themselves into replicas of John Steed. In Nadine's case, something went wrong.
One fills the syringe with the fluid, so, and then inject, so. Now, place the mold of Steed's face over my honest mask, and not to wait.
Nadine lay down on the bed in the hotel room on the same floor as Mrs. Peel's, and some while later found himself fighting for breath. He managed to pull off the mask, which rolled onto the floor and under the bed, and then, his face contorted into a horrible, distorted version of John Steed's, Nadine collapsed backwards. In the enemy headquarters, under the bullring, John Steed tested the strength of the bed rail to which he was handcuffed. He exerted a fair amount of pressure and had the satisfaction of seeing the rail bend slightly. He applied more strength whilst carefully watching Arcos and Markin, who were playing cards.
You win. You are lucky today, Arcos.
It is his skill, not his luck, Markin. How long has Bruno been gone?
2 hours.
And the peach conference has its first sitting at 2:30?
See, not long now.
Any minute, and our man will be on his way there.
And John Steed thought,
on their way there.
But one of them wouldn't be. Down the corridor of the Hotel Miranda, a bedroom maid ran screaming.
He's dead! Mr. John Steed is dead!
Emma Peel and the Baron, hearing the cries, rushed upstairs and into the room. There, on the bed, lay the dead man.
Steed.
But Emma, look. That face.
It isn't Steed. Oh, God, it's like something out of a horror film. Half that face is Steed, and the other half is no face at all.
The peaceful atmosphere of the Hotel Miranda at Tarragon, near Saragossa, in Spain, was shattered.
Ah! He is dead! Come quickly, Mr. Steed is dead! Mr. Steed is dead!
Emma Peel, who had just entered the hotel with Baron von Kurt, heard these cries. She and the Baron had been out searching for Steed. She'd called on Mother, who was holidaying in a caravan, and he'd told her to remain calm and return to the hotel. Mother was privately quite confident that Steed was enjoying a little time off. But hearing the room-maid's despairing screams, Emma Peel and the Baron raced upstairs.
Steed? Steed? Steed?
But Emma, look at his face, that face.
It isn't Steed. Oh, God, it's like something out of a horror movie. Half that face is Steed's, and the other half is no face at all.
Episode 4 of this story, in which John Steed remains a prisoner while others impersonate him, and Mrs. Peel becomes utterly confused by too many bodies and too many Olays. The plot to destroy the peace conference by infiltrating into its rooms an agent disguised as John Steed had now become extremely complicated. It was John Steed's idea. He had succeeded in sending the necessary equipment to 4 other agents. All 4 had managed to turn themselves into Steed's double, and unbeknown to each other, they were preparing to set about the task of sabotage. But Nadine, the original choice of agent, had died during the transformation sequence. Mrs. Peel and Baron von Kurt had called in José of the Spanish Secret Service.
It's like some ghastly scientific experiment that's gone wrong. What do you make of it, Captain José?
It is horrible. Never have I seen the face in such a mess.
And yet, he wasn't deliberately beaten up, was he? I mean, it isn't that sort of wound.
No, it isn't a wound at all. It's like waxwork.
We do not know what caused it. Of one thing we do know.
And that is?
It is not the body of John Steed.
I hope not. Poor Steed.
It cannot be, Mrs. Peel. We take the fingerprints, compare them with those on file at our Secret Service headquarters. Here, see for yourself. They are not the same. That is not John Steed.
But if this is a fake Steed, then where's the real one?
In the bullring, deserted and baked by the blistering heat, 2 men kept guard. One was Dr. Verno, the other Schmanoff. Beneath the bullring, John Steed, handcuffed to the rail of a bed, strained the metal to breaking point. Arcos and Markin disregarded him completely, a fact for which Steed was very grateful. For the 3rd time, Arcos threw down his cards.
There you see, beaten again.
You have the luck of the devil.
I tell you it is no luck.
You really think you'll get away with it, Arcos? Realizing the number of things that could go wrong? Ever faced a real bull in a bull ring, Arcos? Think about it.
I tell you that nothing can go wrong.
Well, that also is a real load of bull. You wouldn't stand a chance upstairs in the ring, and you don't stand much chance now. I repeat, you'll never get away with this.
I know we will.
All right. Assuming that the fake me gets into the peace conference undetected, what then?
A percussion bomb, like this one, here.
Arcos held up an object that looked like a small bullet.
It is unobtrusive, but quite deadly.
Where do you put it? On the chairman's shoe? Stick it on his heel and wait for him to stamp his foot in anger?
It is an amusing idea, Steed, and one that is quite close to the truth. On the bench, in front of the chairman, will be a chairman's gavel, and he, of course, will bring the conference to order like this. Ole, there will be one big boom. The bomb will be in the gavel.
Yes, boom indeed. But you've got to get it there, haven't you?
It will be arranged. I have no doubt it will be arranged. Ole!
At precisely 2:30, the doors of the large country house where the conference was being held swung open. 2 guards were seated at desks to check the guests. It was a question of examining passes, checking the photographs against the presenters, stamping the entry card, and allowing them to continue. Perova, immaculately attired and looking facially exactly like John Steed, moved up to the first guard and displayed his pass.
Thank you, senor. Senor Steed from Great Britain. Thank you.
Perova bowed in a rather too continental fashion, which was lost upon the guard, and moved into the building. He took a drink from a waiter and mixed with the guests. From the other side of the entrance, Rolla, again immaculately dressed and resembling John Steed, walked up to the second guard.
Welcome, senor. Senor Steed from Great Britain. Gracias.
Inside the building, Perova headed for the room saying, "Conference room, no admittance." He was intent on finding the chairman's gavel and planting the percussion bomb. Rolla, from the other side, had exactly the same idea in mind. It was Perova who spotted Rolla first. He was more than surprised.
The real Steed. The real Steed is here at the conference. But I was assured that this could not happen. Well, there is only one thing for it. He must go.
Perova changed his tactics and began stalking Rolla. They met in an anteroom, and the meeting was swift and relatively silent.
So, you think you are more real than me? I show you.
Please, what are you?
The blade of Perova's knife flashed as he lunged. Rolla collapsed, and Perova dragged the body behind a settee. Well, that's one out of the way, Steed. It was at this precise point that Mintoff, on the scene as number 3 Steed, made his entrance between the two guards. He flourished his pass. Both guards indicated that he could go through. A little puzzled at the lack of security precautions, he did so. Both guards turned to each other and said,
I didn't see him go out, did you?
Mintoff sauntered casually over to the waiters and, claiming a drink, edged his way to the conference room. Perova, catching a glance of him, said,
Oh, no. I didn't do the trick after all. Well, this time I will make sure of him.
He tracked Mintoff down outside the conference room. There was a small corridor, and it was there that...
This time I make sure you die.
What?
2 down, Steed. But of course Steed was unaware of all this excitement. So for that matter was Mrs. Peel. In other circumstances, she might have been susceptible to the Baron von Kurt's undoubted charms, but at the moment she was still worried about Steed.
I don't pretend to know what all this is about, but your friend Steed, he means a great deal to you.
Yes, he does.
He'll turn up, I'm sure.
Well, he's in trouble, that much is clear.
I only met him once, but he seemed to me a man well able to deal with trouble.
Up to date, I'd say you were right. But he always has a way of letting one know.
Look, I have a house here in Spain. Why not come back there with me? You'll be well chaperoned, I promise you.
Look, I can't. There is somewhere that I should like to go. It has nothing to do with us. I just feel I should be there. If I'm not, then I shall feel that I'm letting Steed down. Do you understand?
Not at all. But I should consider it a privilege to drive you there.
Under the bull ring, the cards continued.
You see, it is not the luck, it is skill.
See,
I think I need it. It will not be long now. Then, Larkin, if we get away with it...
See, if we do.
If? Are you both beginning to have doubts? You're starting to lose confidence, Arcos. There's so much that could go wrong, as I've already pointed out. So many things you could have overlooked.
Such as the fact that you've nearly got that bed rail free. Pull away, Steed, pull away. Mrs. Peel, being driven by the Baron, had been quiet until she said,
Turn left here. There's the place I want to go to.
There?
Yes? Oh, what's so funny?
Forgive me, but you see, you have accepted my invitation after all.
What do you mean? You mean that...
That the large palatial residence in front of you is my house. I lent it to the authorities for the peace conference. It's the biggest place for miles around. You're surprised. I'm beginning to see a little daylight. You and this business with Steed, it has something to do with the conference.
Yes, it has, but I don't understand. If you live here, then why?
Why am I staying in a hotel? Well, crowds bore me. I like to feel I have space to breathe. You know what I mean?
And there are the pursuing females.
I'm afraid so. It's the title, you see. So many women long to be a baroness.
Yes, I do see. But I don't think it's only the title. I wouldn't be too sure about that. I wouldn't be too sure at all.
Of course, the Baron and Mrs. Peel were admitted without question into the Baron's own home. Inside was Captain Jose to welcome them.
It's good news, is it not? Or have you not heard? Steed is alive. He has been admitted here and is in the crowds somewhere. My men have seen him over there.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you hear that, Baron?
Yes. Let us go and find him.
They searched the rooms. Baron von Kurt led the way. After all, it was his home. He should know the rooms.
Any luck?
No sign of him. But Jose's men insist that he was here somewhere. You know, you say you don't like crowds. He doesn't either.
Then he will have chosen one of the anterooms. Follow me.
Mrs. Peel did.
You take that side, I'll take this.
It was then that Mrs. Peel found Roller dead.
Steed! Oh, Steed! Oh, no.
And the Baron found Mintoff dead.
Oh, Senor Steed. Herr Steed. Mr. Steed. No.
And, of course, they were both completely wrong. Now, at the peace conference, Baron von Kurt and Mrs. Peel were searching amongst the guests for John Steed.
Any luck?
No sign of him. But Jose's men insist that he's here. You know you said that you don't like crowds. Steed doesn't either.
Then he'll be in one of the anterooms. This way. You take that side, I'll take this.
It was then that Mrs. Peel found Roller dead.
Steed! Oh, Steed! Oh, no.
And the Baron found Mintoff dead.
Oh, Senor Steed. Oh, no.
Baron? Baron, I found him in the other room. He's been killed.
Yes. Yes, there is another body of Steed here. What does it all mean?
Episode 5 of this story, in which John Steed gets back into the action, and Mrs. Peel and the Baron hear too many arguments and too many olays. John Steed, still held a prisoner in the damp room beneath the bullring, strained at the handcuffs that held him to the bedrail. He knew he had to get out before one of the 4 men impersonating him got to the peace conference and planted a percussion bomb in the chairman's gavel. What Steed didn't appreciate, of course, was that each of the agents thought he was the only one looking like John Steed. The result of this was that every time they met each other, they thought they'd met the real Steed. Perova had met both Roller and Mintoff, and had, without hesitation, killed them both. Mrs. Peel and the Baron were quite bewildered. So, for that matter, was Captain Jose.
Yes. Astonishing. Amazing. If I hadn't seen it for myself, I would never have believed it. Both look exactly alike.
And both look exactly like John Steed.
But which one is Steed?
Neither. Both are duplicates. How the transformation has been achieved, we will never know. But there it is. 2 dead Steeds.
I think we need a drink. Don't you, Emma?
A large one.
This is very, very serious.
A guard! Senor Capitano.
Give orders. All the guards alerted. Shoot to kill.
What?
Si, senor.
What does that mean, Captain?
Mrs. Peel, it is a difficult decision. But it is clear that someone wants to infiltrate the conference. There must be a plan to wreck it somehow. And someone has created the duplicate Steeds in order to do so.
Well?
Well, under these circumstances, we must conclude that the real Steed is dead. And so, any other Steeds must be shot on sight.
But John Steed was far from dead. He was working on the bedrail, bending the metal to breaking point. Arcos and Markin looked up occasionally from their game of cards.
It should not be long now before we hear the news, Arcos.
I have no doubt that Nadine will achieve success, Markin. He has complete instructions. The whole of the conference room will be blown to little pieces.
Our job will be over. We can go home.
And claim the money. Retire with the satisfaction of a job well done.
What about him?
Markin indicated Steed with a greasy finger.
Easy.
I don't think things will ever get to that state, gentlemen.
Steed gave one last enormous tug at the bed rail. The rail broke away.
Argos!
Steed, using the rail, made for Markin. He swung the rail. Arcos made for his gun, reaching across the table. Steed brought the bed rail down over his hand. The gun went off harmlessly. Steed got in a terrific punch smack on the right spot of Arcos's jaw.
Oh, that'll teach you to click your castanets at me.
Doing all right at the moment, aren't you, Steed? The rest of the escape was easy. Steed got out of the deserted bull ring and into the nearest taxi.
Habla usted en inglés?
Inglés. Sí, little, signor.
Then you will take me to the peace conference and accept my grandfather's gold watch as a temporary payment.
Sí, signor. Okay. Sí.
It didn't take long to reach the Baron's home, where the peace conference was about to begin. Steed's taxi drew up just as the fourth disguised agent, Giorgio, arrived in his car.
Excuse me, I've just seen someone I know.
Steed walked swiftly across to Giorgio's car. Before the astonished agent could react, Steed opened the car door, found himself gazing at his own face, and said,
I hate to do this to those noble features.
And threw a punch at Giorgio. Giorgio rode it and grabbed a gun. The two Steeds grappled. In the struggle, the gun went off. Giorgio collapsed, slumped forward over the front seat. That's 4 down, Steed, and 1 to go.
Ole.
Meanwhile, Perova, now the only disguised Steed left, had got into the conference room and was working on planting the small bomb in the chairman's gavel. It took a little time, and the delegates were making their way along the corridor as he completed the task. Perova placed the gavel on the table at the right hand of the chairman's seat and disappeared through the French windows.
I now have to wait. The big bang.
John Steed entered the building at top speed. The 2 guards at the door had no time to raise their rifles. Steed said,
Good afternoon, buenas tardes,
and hit their heads together. He then made off, up the corridor at a furious pace, crashing into the conference room. Just as the chairman, raising the gavel, said,
Now, gentlemen, may I call the meeting to order?
No, put that thing down. Here, give it to me.
Steed hurled himself at the chairman, grabbed at the gavel, hesitated for a fraction of a second, and then crashed his way through the windows out into the grounds. Steed threw the gavel as far away as possible and crouched in the bushes.
They should give me 2 ears and a tail for that.
The effect upon the conference was catastrophic.
Tried to blow us up.
He wants to... After him! After him! Get after Steed! Here's Steed! Don't let him get away! You cover the exit! Search the grounds! Don't worry! He won't get away!
Emma Peel, who had witnessed all this along with the other guests, wasn't so sure.
You know, Baron, it doesn't make sense.
You're telling me. Cannot understand what is going on in my own home. Which Steed was that?
Well, the point is, whoever it was didn't blow up the conference.
Pardon?
He didn't blow up the place. He had the bomb in his hand, but he crashed his way out into the open with it.
No alternative. He was surprised. The guards were after him.
I wonder, you don't think that... I mean, you don't imagine that he was the real Steed?
Not a chance. Come on, let's get out into the grounds. I know them better than anyone. I want to get in on this, too.
Out on the grounds, John Steed dodged from cover to cover. Perova had heard the sound of the explosion and thought his plan to wreck the conference and kill its delegates had succeeded. But then he heard the orders shouted by Captain Jose and thought they were after him. He also went into hiding. Mrs. Peel, separated temporarily from the Baron, was crawling her way through the undergrowth, gun in hand, when...
Mrs. Peel.
Stay where you are. Don't move.
Me, the real me.
Stay still and put your hands up.
Mrs. Peel, Emma, if I wasn't the real me, how would I know who you are?
Whoever impersonates John Steed must have done their homework. They'd know all about me. Don't move.
Look, your last birthday, I took you to Quag's for supper.
Stay still.
We had caviar, quail's eggs, smoked sturgeon, lobster thermidor, and wild strawberries out of season.
Well, how did you find that out?
Well, I happened to be there. You had 2 helpings of strawberries.
You could have followed us. Anyone could have seen that.
Then we went back to my apartment, and no one could have seen what went on back there.
Oh?
At least I hope not.
I'm not convinced. What was I wearing?
At Quagg's or the flat? You had an embroidered caftan.
And shoes?
Gold, but you kicked them off before we got home. Threw them under the settee. And on the settee, you got a little tipsy and very, very amorous.
Steed. Oh, Steed, it really is you.
It is.
Oh, Steed.
Over here!
Down, lie still.
Steed? Steed, what is going on?
There's no time to explain it all, but we've got to grab the real villain of the piece. His name is Arcos, and he's hiding out in an old bull ring near here.
Well, you may have convinced me, but it won't be as easy with them. They've got orders to kill you. They'll shoot first and talk later.
I'll manage somehow.
Steed, was I very amorous?
I still bear the scars. Think you can pinch a car, Mrs. Peel?
Think? I passed car theft instructions with an A+.
Well, off you go, then. Bring it back there by the trees. I'll be waiting.
Right.
Mrs. Peel shot out of cover and made for the car park. A short while later, Mrs. Peel arrived in a smart new car, parked it at the place agreed upon, opened the door, and moved over to greet Steed. But it was Perova who stepped out from behind the tree.
So, you have brought me a car. How very thoughtful.
Steed!
I am afraid not.
Perova raised a revolver, pointed it straight at Mrs. Peel. His finger tightened over the trigger. But the Baron crashed his way through the bushes and with his sword lunged forward.
Oh, no! Ole.
One blow, and that's the last of them out of the way. You're on your own from now on, Steed.
Now,
Mrs. Peel had been convinced that the real John Steed was alive and hiding in the grounds of Baron von Kurt's country home. The peace conference had broken up in confusion, but no one had been hurt. Mrs. Peel had helped herself to a car and driven to the spot where Steed said he would be hiding. But when Mrs. Peel arrived, it was Perova, disguised and looking exactly like Steed, who stepped from behind the trees.
Oh, you have brought me a car. How very thoughtful.
Steed!
I am afraid not.
Perova raised a revolver, pointed it straight at Mrs. Peel. His finger tightened on the trigger. At that moment, the Baron crashed his way through the bushes, sword in hand, and made one powerful lunge.
He fooled me. For one moment, I thought it was the real Steed.
I think we have to face it, Emma, my dear. The real Steed must be dead.
The sixth and final episode in this story, in which John Steed and Emma Peel defeat all their many enemies and quit sunny Spain to the sound of too many olés. John Steed was sure he'd persuaded Mrs. Peel that he was alive and well, and quite genuinely wished to escape from Captain José's men in order to return to the bull ring and arrest Arcos and Markin, the two responsible for the plan to wreck the peace conference. The plan to blow up the delegates had nearly succeeded, and it was only by lucky timing that Steed had managed to get the bomb out of the conference room and explode it harmlessly in the grounds. But Captain José didn't appreciate this, and had given orders that anyone looking like John Steed should be shot on sight. Unfortunately, this included Steed himself. Now that Perova was dead, and Mrs. Peel convinced she had been fooled by him, Steed was once more on his own. He found this out the moment he innocently hailed Mrs. Peel and the Baron from near the borrowed car.
Over here, Mrs. Peel, over here.
There's another one of them.
Well, I'm not getting fooled again. Let's get him.
Mrs. Peel let fly with a barrage of shots. Steed ducked out of the way.
Even your best friends won't tell you if they believe in you or not. I've got to get out of this.
Steed made it to the other side of the car, ducked into it, started it up, and drove as quickly as he could down the driveway.
Come on, Emma. My car's just down the drive after him. He mustn't get away. Come on.
A short while after that, 2 cars raced up the main road towards the Tarragon bull ring. Steed in the first.
Well, they made it. Just.
The Baron and Mrs. Peel in the second car.
Ole. Don't want to lose him.
I think I know where he's heading. Before he persuaded me to steal that car for him, he pitched me a long explanation about the true villains of the piece hiding in a deserted bull ring.
Ah, then if that is so, I know the spot.
Baron, I'm so confused. Why should that man tell me his plans? How did he manage to know so much about my private life?
Does he know about your private life? How much?
A darn sight too much. Things I didn't even think the real Steed would remember. Even down to the sort of food I like. Careful! I like paella, but I don't want to end up like one.
Not much further. Hold on, here we go. We'll beat him even yet.
Steed may have made up his mind to get Arcos and Markin, but Arcos had ideas of his own. He'd been at work with the transformation kit, this time on his own face.
Arcos, are you all right under that mask?
See. I think I'm fine. It is working.
It should be set by now, surely. Come on out from under there.
I remove the mask, so...
There. And how do I look? Like all the other versions, exactly like John Steed, but why?
Simple. Everyone will be searching for me as the man who succeeded in blowing up the delegates at the conference. No one will question John Steed. Once we killed him, I shall be free to impersonate Steed back in London. Think of the information I shall be able to sell to foreign powers. Millions. I shall be a very, very rich man indeed.
Clever. I admit you are clever, hombre.
Now, as to adjust the rest of my appearance. The London suit, the bowler, and the umbrella. And I am Steed complete.
Yeah.
While I do so, you had better go up into the ring and see that all is well. Dr. Verno and Smirnoff are doing guard duty. If anything suspicious occurs, inform me immediately. Go quickly, Markin.
Easy. I go.
John Steed made the bull ring just a few minutes ahead of the Baron and Mrs. Peel. He screeched his car to a halt at the back of the stands. Jumped out and rushed down the corridor and out into the ring. Verno and Smirnoff spotted him.
There he goes. He crossed the ring towards the entrance to the headquarters.
Get him.
Steed tore across the hot sand, the bullets splattering themselves around his feet. He made the other side of the barrier and plunged down the tunnel that led to the underground room. The 2 men were after him. He got there just in time, slammed the heavy door and locked it.
Open! It's not open!
Up in the bull ring, the Baron and Mrs. Peel, having arrived and parked their car next to Steed's, entered cautiously from the far side. Markin spotted them and raised his gun.
Down! Hold this fire, Emma. I'll try and get him from the other side. Work my way round.
Right.
Verno and Smirnoff, hearing the firing, gave up banging on the door and returned to the action. Mrs. Peel kept Markin's attention, while the Baron, sword in hand, edged his way along the rows of deserted seats. But Verno spotted him.
There, Markin, behind you. Look out!
What?
The Baron raised his sword as Markin was about to take aim and threw it like a spear. It whistled through the air, catching Markin in the chest. While all this was going on in the hot sunlight, Steed, back under the bull ring in the enemy headquarters, tried to adjust his eyes to the gloom. In the shadows stood the figure of Arcos. He held a gun.
Arcos?
Steed returned.
Yes, the game is up, Arcos. You hear the sounds of pursuit? I have friends. They'll be here at any moment. You've lost, Arcos.
Not Arcos.
Take a good look, Steed.
Arcos stepped out of the shadows. Steed found himself looking down the wrong end of a gun and then staring into his own face.
You are amazed. My last line of defense. A nice touch of irony about it, don't you think? Now I am you. Like a drink?
Arcos moved forward and, not taking his eyes off Steed or moving his gun off him, placed a tankard of wine on the table.
Drink. It will be your last. You see, there cannot be two of us. That would never do. Cheers.
Did I ever tell you how I clobbered your man Markin? It was simple. I threw wine in his face.
Steed threw the wine at Arcos. It blinded him for a second, and in that second, Steed grappled for the gun. The gun went off. The bullet caught Arcos in the shoulder. Steed slipped and crashed to the floor. Arcos, clutching his wound, staggered for the door, unlocked it, and made for the open, where a battle royal was going on between the Baron and Verno. They both had claimed swords and were fighting it out in the middle of the ring.
Come, my friend. The odds are equal.
I kill you. I kill you like the fool.
Not like that. Ole it is, clumsy fool.
Mrs. Peel, without any sword and out of ammunition, had tackled Smirnoff. Using a matador's cape, she held him at bay with ease.
Ole! Ole! Ole!
Arcos, staggering into the light, was seen by Markin, who lay nearly dead by the side of the ring.
Steed. I'll get Steed if it is the last thing I do.
Markin reached out a blood-stained hand and found his gun. He raised himself on one shoulder and took careful aim.
No, Markin! I am not Steed! I am Arcos!
At that moment, the Baron came to Mrs. Peel's rescue and made short work of his duel with Smirnoff.
Ole it is. Good work, Baron.
John Steed stepped out into the bull ring.
There's another of them. Let's get him.
No, that's the real Steed.
But how can you tell?
Well, who else would smile at a time like this?
John Steed advanced across the sand, and he was smiling.
Ole, Steed.
Ole, Steed.
You know, I think there have been too many Olays and not enough hellos. Hello, Mrs. Peel.
Hello, Steed.
Later, very much later, Emma Peel was lying on a beach towel in a bikini. Alongside, in swimming trunks, was John Steed. She was smoothing oil on herself. Steed appeared asleep.
Steed? You were right, you know, about it not being a real holiday. Our job was to attend the peace conference as official observers. Just that and nothing else. That was our duty, not to go gadding about all over Spain, lazing around on a beach, sunning ourselves. Ridiculous.
Irresponsible.
Unpatriotic, even. All the same, I think it was a bit mean of Mother to insist we come back here the very next day.
Maybe. Want me to adjust the sun lamp nearer you?
Steed stretched up an arm and moved the sun lamp in Mrs. Peel's apartment so that it glowed down on the towel that protected the carpet. As he did so, Mrs. Peel looked out of the window at the grey London skies.
You know something, Steed? I think it's going to rain again.
Avengers.
Listen every evening, Monday to Friday, to John Steed and Emma Peel, The Avengers.